All right, and we are now live on Facebook. So, all right, hope everyone is doing well. We are back for part 6 of our series, 8 Steps to Buy Your First or 10th Multifamily Property. For those of you who don't know who I am or maybe missed the first, I think it was 5 sessions that we've done, I'm Andrew Cushman, and I started off as a chemical engineer, went into flipping houses in Southern California, and then did that full time for 4 years. And in 2011, went into apartments full time and have syndicated about 2,100 units since then. And that is our sole focus. We have just done apartment syndication for the last 10 years. And that's what we try to be as much of an expert in as we can. Thank you for the way and hearts on Instagram, and go ahead and let us know where you're coming in from. I love hearing from people around the country and around the world. We always have somebody from outside of North America, and love to say hello. We seem to get a lot of people from Israel and Germany and some of those countries. So, all right, we are going to. So, I almost forgot. Most important, please go ahead and ask your questions. So, hey, hello, Ipu from Jupiter, Florida. We get representation from Chicago and Philly popping up. Post your questions both in the Instagram feed and on Facebook. I will try to grab as many of those during the presentation as possible. And if we have time at the end, then if there's any that we missed, please just go ahead and repost. And I'll do my best to scroll back and see if we can catch those. But probably the easiest is just to repost. So, man, we got lots of people from California today: Granite Bay, Irvine, Mammoth, and Orange County, California. So San Diego, and also on Facebook, Victoria from Fort Worth, Texas. Hello, Victoria. Used to own some property there. So, all right, let's jump right in. Like I said, we are on step 6. Oh, I got to stop and say hello to Kabako from Colombia. Awesome. So, all right. So, real brief recap of what we talked about the last 5 weeks. We talked about 1, how do you choose a market, right? Whether it's the market that you live in or a market far away. We talked about how do you build a team on week 2. And on Instagram, we got a question right now: best way to start working, flipping with partners. So go back to that second week, that recording, and listen to that, because we talked about not only how do you build a core team, meaning partners or people that you actually literally hire, but what some of your external team members are and how to add those. So property managers, brokers, lenders, realtors, agents, all those kind of things, right? Then we started getting down to where it gets a little more exciting: screening properties, right? So you've done all this work, you built the team, you're getting 10 properties a day in your inbox or your voicemail. You don't have time to look at all of them. So, and it's not efficient to look at all of them. So how do you weed that down to the couple that have the highest probability of being good deals or something that you're going to put an offer on, right? So that was screening. How do you say, okay, out of these 10 properties, these are the 2 that I really want to focus on. If there's any of these that you missed, or if you missed them, if there's one, I'd say go back and review. It would definitely be that one. Next is we got into underwriting in week 4. And that's like, great, I've got these 2 deals. We screened 10. We've got 2. They look really good. Now what, right? So we talked about how do you estimate expenses, income, rent growth, revenue, all those kind of things. Last week, it gets even more exciting. We talked about making an offer, right? That's the whole point. If you're not making offers, you're never going to. So we talked about when to make an offer. Is it okay to put in a low offer? How do you, what do you say and not say in your offer? How many offers should you put in? Should you have seen the property before and not seen it? And then, okay, I got an offer accepted. I got to do a contract. How do I do that? That's the stuff we covered last week. And now you've got an accepted offer. You were either under contract or going under contract. What now, right? Everyone talks about getting the deal, and then there's not as much information. Well, what the heck happens after that? So today we're going to talk about due diligence, right? So you've got an offer accepted. Now you're going to dive deep into the property and make sure that, number 1, it's the deal that you think you're getting, and then number 2, maybe there's some you can uncover by digging deep that you didn't see before. So, and hello to Canada on Instagram. And then the next 2 weeks, we're going to talk about financing and debt strategy. And then the last week is asset management. Now you own it. Now what do you do, right? And asset management is actually where the real money is made. So second Facebook to come back. In the meantime, yeah, I just saved my on Facebook. Good deal. So here's kind of a quick overview of what we're going to cover. Number one, we're talking about documents that you need to request and review for due diligence. We're going to talk about your site visit. What are you going to do for an exterior tour, interior tours? You are going to walk all units. If you're buying a duplex, that doesn't seem like a whole lot, but if you're buying 120 units, yeah, you're going to walk all 120 units. We're going to talk about coordinating contractors. When do you start doing that? We're talking about driving the neighborhood, getting a feel for, what it's like. You can learn a lot these days online, but there's still no substitute that is quite as good as just being there in person. And then also part of driving the neighborhood is driving comparables. So we'll talk about all of those things here. All right. Okay, so documents. These are things that you are going to request from the owners and that you are going to, once you're under contract, dive in deep, right? So, each one of these things, we could probably spend, half an hour on exactly how to really dive in and what you're looking for. We don't, of course, have the time for that, and we wouldn't want to put everyone to sleep. So we're going to kind of hit them high level, but if you got any specific questions, feel free to post those and we'll try to get to them. So the first thing you're going to want is tax bills or property tax assessments. In many cases, you can get those just by going to the Secretary of State website for whatever state your property is in. But we always like to request them from the seller as well. Number one, it can save us one more thing to do. And then two, sometimes we like to compare and just make sure that, and just, verify, right? Trust but verify is the theme in doing all of this. The second thing is lease agreements. So again, whether this is you're looking at a duplex or 200 units, you're going to want to see every single lease, right? So it's, again, not a big deal if you're buying a duplex. You're just going to read through, scan through the two leases, make sure that the terms match the rent roll, that there's not anything weird in there that, would be a problem for you taking over those leases, because that's what's going to happen. Those leases are going to be assigned to you. Now, if you're looking at a bigger property that's, let's say, 50 units or 100 units, you're going to ask for the seller to provide you, to scan and email you maybe 2 or 3 example leases. And then when you actually go on site, that's when you, or preferably somebody else on your team, is going to actually sit there and go through and scan through every single actual lease. Hey, Waydono, I really appreciate that. So he said on Instagram, says this guy is good. Any questions I can help with, let me know. The next thing is the current rent roll. And this kind of gets back to the leases too. So you want to get the most recent rent roll. Ideally, it's from literally the day before, right? There's really no reason that somebody shouldn't be able to 24 hours. However, a rent roll should just be in the system and something that they can print off or recreate at any point, right? They should be definitely keeping track of who is and isn't living in their property. So you take that rent roll, and you look at the rents, you look at security deposits, how many, what is vacancy. Look at delinquency. How many people are living there but haven't paid rent? And if they haven't paid rent, how many weeks or months are they behind, right? If they're a couple weeks behind, maybe not a big deal. But if you've got 20% of the property, if you've got a fourplex and 3 people haven't paid rent for 2 months, you're inheriting a problem. Might be an opportunity for you to make some money, but you definitely need to be prepared for inheriting that problem. And then you want to compare the leases with the rent roll, right? If you've got 10 leases and you've got a rent roll with 10 units, you want to match up and make sure that that rent roll has the same information that the that are on the leases, right? So if the lease says they're paying $850 in rent, the rent roll should say they're paying $850 in rent. If there's a discrepancy, you go with what the lease says, because at the end of the day, if you're getting a disagreement or you're having to go to court, it's going to be based on the lease, not the rent roll. So again, that's why you want both of these things, and that's why you want to compare the two of them. The next thing we ask for is 3 years of monthly profit and loss. And again, that gets back to your financials. A lot of owners of duplexes and fourplexes or single family houses aren't going to have this. Some will, some won't. And it's just a matter of your comfort level of whether or not you can and are willing to buy without it. And also your lender, right? Some lenders are going to require you to have clean historical financials. Other lenders, they're okay with your pro forma. So this is something that we ask for. At a bare minimum, we really, really want to get the last 12 months. But we ask for the last 3 years because that gives a good consistent history and really can up the comfort level of your lender. Another one is bank statements. This is another one that you probably going to get a 50-50 response on, right? The reason being is, again, there's some people, understandably, who are just like, I'm not giving you bank statements, but especially if they have multiple entities or properties going into one bank account, then okay, that makes sense, right? Because the whole reason you're asking for bank statements is you want to verify income is being deposited, right? So if they're telling you, hey, we collect $10,000 a month, you want to look at the bank statement for the operating account of that property and see, oh yeah, hey, look, they're depositing $10,000 a month, right? But if they've got 3 properties going into that one account, it's going to be hard to figure that out. So this is one of those ones where sometimes it's very good and useful for verifying income and making sure that they're not inflating income or deceiving you in any way. But it's not something you're always going to be able to get. And that's really the idea. You're going to see a lot of stuff here. You're like, wow, do I really need all of this? The bigger the deal, the more you need it and want it. But again, it really comes down to verifying and cross-checking so you know what you're getting and verifying it truly is a good investment, especially if you're syndicating or partnering and bringing in other people's money. All right, the next one is you want 5-year history on insurance claim. The code word for this in the industry is loss runs, right? So if someone says, if you talk to an insurance broker and like, hey, I'm buying this fourplex and can you give me a quote on insurance? And they're gonna say, oh, can you get me the loss runs on that? And you're like, okay, what the heck is that? Loss runs is basically just the claims history for the last 5 years. And what they're looking for is there a theme of losses, right? So if they've had 3 fires in the last 5 years, odds are you're going to have a really tough time getting insurance, or your insurance payment's going to be really high. So that's going to be that's a very very much a required thing. And if you don't get it or are unable to get it, then that might just mean you have to find a different insurer, or you're just going to pay higher rents, or pay higher rates. William on Instagram says, is there a way to confirm the bank account only has the income from the property in question? Not really. Again, and that's why this isn't that the bank account isn't foolproof. It's more of a cross-checking and verifying. And generally how we look at it is if things match up, great. If they don't, then we ask for an explanation and just say, hey, the financial says you're collecting $12,000 a month. We only see $10,000 deposited. What's going on? And sometimes we see this, P&L says you're collecting $10,000 a month and we're seeing $14,000 deposited. How come you're depositing more than you're collecting, right? So that kind of gets to your question, William, verifying the source. Basically, if it matches, great. If it doesn't, ask a few questions. And, I also look at this, someone might, in theory, could deposit extra money into the account for a few months to make it look better. But most people aren't going to be willing or able to do that for a long period of time. So that's why we ask for 6 months, sometimes 12 months. So good question, though. Thanks, William. Let's see, utility bills. This is a key. This one is huge, and there's really no excuse for somebody or seller not to deliver this to you. We had a deal one time where they represented that the utilities were, I think, about $60,000 a year, so water and electricity. And of course, we based our offer on that. When we got under contract and we requested the actual bills from the utility providers, they sent us 12 months of bills, and we added up, like, whoa. Okay. And I forget the exact numbers, but I think it was like, hey, seller, you told us on your P&L The utilities are 60,000. And according to these bills we're adding up, it's 120, right? And I do remember that it was double. So what the seller told us and actual was double what the seller told us. So we're like, hey, what's going on here? And they actually basically admitted, like, well, we have one set of books for you and one set of books internally. And like, well, that cuts the NOI by $50,000, $60,000. So we'll still buy it, but here's our new price, right? Because if you think about it, take $50,000 a year and apply a 10 cap to it, which those days are long gone. That's $500,000 in value, right? Today it's probably more like $1 million or more. And so we said, well, we're going to have to lower our price. The seller said, nope, and get out here, right? So if we hadn't checked into that and verified those utility bills, we would have ended up really overpaying for that property. So that is definitely one of the most important things on here. So, all right. Hello, Paul from Kansas City. Let's move on to the next group. All right, a few more documents. And again, if you're trying to take notes and you miss some of these, or you're driving, or you're on Instagram where you can't see the slides. And if you are on Instagram, there are again, we do have slides on Facebook, and those are being recorded, so you can go back and get the recording and either screenshot some of this or take notes or whatever you want to do. Let's see. So we talked about property tax assessments already. Oh, certificates of occupancy. This can be a big one depending on the county that you're in. When a building is in a duplex or 100 units or and a rental property is completed, the county will give the certificate of occupancy. Basically, what that says is that you have the legal right to move people into and occupy those units, right? The city, the county, whatever, they've signed off and said, yep, they're up to code, or you're grandfathered in, whatever. We're saying you can go rent these, right? You're not at any kind of risk of the city coming in and saying, hey, you can't rent these, get everybody out, which has happened. I've seen it happen where the county says you don't have a certificate of occupancy, everybody has to move out. So you definitely want to request their certificates of occupancy. Sometimes and that definitely tends to apply more on commercial buildings, but the idea here is you want to do the research and just make sure that you aren't at risk of buying a property where you think you've got 4 units or 10 units, and then you come back and find out, oh, actually it's only permitted as a duplex, and the city says you can't have 4 families in here. Or you buy a 10 unit and the county comes in and says you got to get everybody out, and you have to fix some major structural things before we're going to let you lease it again. You're going to have a big problem on your hands, right? So certificates of occupancy, personal property list. A lot of people will ask, what the heck is a personal property list? Think of anything that's either on site or in the property that's going to be included with the sale, right? So maybe it's a lawnmower, maybe it's a pressure washer, maybe it's some tools for a maintenance person or something like that, right? You want to have a list of what is going to be included with the sale and not included in the sale. So what that does is it avoids the argument at closing of, hey, you said I assumed you were going to leave the lawnmower here. And the guy's like, that's my lawnmower. My grandfather used that lawnmower. I'm not giving it to you. It avoids that kind of stuff. So you want to have a personal property list. It's very detailed. Hey, this stays, this goes, everybody's agreed on it. We're all set. And then finally, current contracts. So if there's a landscaping contract, property management contract, trash, pest control, all of those things, you want to see how much they're paying and what the terms of the contract are, right? Because maybe you're going to be able to get those done for less. And then also, are you going to be forced to assume those contracts, right? So if they're paying a crazy cable bill because of a contract they signed, does that mean you have to pay that as well? So, all right, so that's a quick list of about 10 things of documents that you want in due diligence. Some of those are really important. Others are good, but are kind of nice to have. It is very, very rare that you're going to get all of these things, but the more of them you can get, the better off you're going to be, and the more sure of your deal that you're going to be. So, all right, let me make sure I'm not missing any questions here on Facebook. It looks like we're good, and we'll keep on moving. And again, if I miss questions, I know I'm missing a bunch on Instagram because they're scrolling through really fast. So I appreciate them. I'm going to try to grab them if I can. If not, please just keep reposting it. and hopefully I'll see it again and grab it. So, and Soldier 71459 says great info. Really appreciate that. Yeah, hopefully this is helpful. So, all right. Here's a couple of things that we request but often can't get, and that is an updated survey and a phase 1 environmental report. Both of these tend to be for commercial properties, so 5 units on up. So and often if you're getting a loan, your lender will want to order these things. So again, a survey, most of you are probably familiar with that. That's just basically, someone comes in and surveys the property and says, okay, it's this many feet along the north side, this many feet along the south side, and here's the property, here's where the buildings are, here's where the easements are, all of those kind of things, right? Phase 1 environmental, that is a study that is done by a company that specializes in it to make sure that you are not buying yourself an environmental disaster, right? Because how the U.S. government looks and the EPA looks at it is if there's an environmental issue on your property, they don't care if it was from someone 50 years ago. The fact is you own the property right now, and it's your problem to clean it up. And that could be 6 figures, 7 figures. I mean, environmental stuff can get absolutely out of control. And so you want to get a phase 1 report, number one, to make sure that there isn't anything there. And if they find something suspicious, then you go to what's called phase 2, right? And it's a big surprise there, where they actually really do some testing and sampling. But the big benefit of that phase 1 is that if you get a phase 1 report, environmental report that says, hey, there is nothing here. It's called no recognized issues, or I believe. If you get that report and then something is discovered later, you can take that to the APA and say, hey, look, we did our due diligence. There was not, this says, we did everything that we could do. We didn't cause this. This was missed by this company. And that basically kind of gives you liability protection against the EPA coming against you. Not foolproof, but very high degree. So again, you definitely want to get that on a commercial building. Duplex, fourplex, maybe not. They tend to be in residential areas and don't have those kind of issues. But any property that's in a more urban area or is 10 units, 20 units, 30 units, you definitely want to get that phase 1. So that is something we get on every deal, no matter what. All right. So now we've gotten some of these documents and we got on a plane or we got in the car and we're going to the property. And we're doing our boots on the ground, right? Now, ideally, before you go out and do that, you've had somebody else do that first, right? Again, part of it is just to make sure that, and ideally, you've done that before you get under contract. So you have someone do an initial visit so that you can get a better idea of what's needed. Kind of get a better feel of your CapEx budget. It's very competitive to get deals right now. So you definitely don't want to underestimate your CapEx, but you don't want to overestimate it either, because you might not get the deal when you should have. And you're going to want to start lining up contractors. So if you're going to, go do your inspections, due diligence inspections in 2 weeks, as soon as you know when you're going out there, you want to start lining up contractors so that you can, so that they can come meet with you on site, and you can go over your plan with them, and also have them tell you if they see anything that you missed, and know what your budget's going to be. So Kelsey on Instagram says, I have a question. Feel free to post that, and either on Facebook or Instagram, and we'll try to grab them as we can. And if we miss them, just repost towards the end, and we'll try to catch up. So, all right. So make sure. All right. So site visit. So, in the pictures you're going to see on Facebook are actual pictures from, our due diligence inspections this year. And this is some of the stuff that you're looking for. So, ideally you're going to visit with somebody who's knowledgeable of the property, so that if it's a fourplex, it might just be the owner. If it's a 10 unit or a larger property, it might be a maintenance person. It might be the property manager, but just somebody who has some knowledge of the property. This gives you an opportunity to ask questions that, number one, you might not think of when you're not on site. But then also, if you just kind of, you'll find that as you're walking properties with people, and just kind of having natural conversations like, again, here on Facebook, you can see that there's red tags that says, do not remove, system has critical deficiency or impairment. This is the fire sprinkler system for the property that we were looking at, right? This is not something you would find without going on site. This was in a closet that we opened up as we're walking around, like, oh, this fire system is red tagged. What is going on? Fortunately, the maintenance guy was there, and he was able to tell us, oh yeah, we actually got the so Fast Closing says, I'd rather be on Facebook than Instagram. I can't find you on there. Go to the Bigger Pockets Facebook page, and we are live streaming on Facebook there. So we opened up the closet, and the fire system is red tagged, which sounds pretty scary, right? Because if there's a fire and your fire sprinkler system's not working, that's a huge liability. And the maintenance person was there with us. Actually, the owner and the maintenance person was there with us. And he said, oh yeah, we're aware of that. We actually got it re-inspected and approved a couple of weeks ago, but they forgot to come back and remove the tags, right? So we got in touch with the company and verified that that was true, and that was the case. However, we have had situations in other properties where the sprinkler system was down. That's a huge liability and very, very expensive to fix, right? So, does that mean the deal's done? Absolutely not. Maybe you either budgeted some CapEx that was for contingencies, and you can just say, all right, well, there it goes. I'm going to spend it on the sprinkler system. Or as part of your deal, you can say, hey, seller, we're still going to close, but please, we're going to ask you to have the fire system fixed before we close. Right. So while you're walking around looking for this, you're looking for large and small stuff, right? So potentially big stuff like the fire system doesn't work. And then also for those of you on Facebook, if you look at this picture at the top of the window, you can see there's just some like mold and mildew kind of on the top of the window flashing. And that can be nothing, right? This property is in Florida, so a lot of rain, a lot of humidity, or it could mean that there's water seeping down behind the brick in between the wood and the brick. And if so, then that means something's not sealed properly, and that's going to be something you're going to want to get taken care of. Again, on the exteriors, you're also looking for what condition is the siding in? Does the paint look good? Are you going to need to pay for new paint in the next few years? How are the gutters? Are they full of baby pine trees and oak trees growing out of them because they haven't been cleaned in 5 years? Are they falling off? Or are they non-existent, right? If you look at this picture here, this is a property we actually closed yesterday. They don't have gutters. And in this case, they actually don't really need them. But if there's no gutters, a lot of times adding gutters can make sense, right? How is the lighting at the property? That gets back to another tip. Always try to drive your potential acquisition at night too, right? Go there once it's dark, see, are people loitering around? How quiet is it? Do you feel safe? Do your residents feel safe? And how well lit is it, right? And if it's not well lit, you need to budget for making it well lit. You want to look at the roofs. Most of the time, roofs, you can just kind of walk around and take a look. A lot of times we'll have contractors go ahead and climb up there and take a look. And we actually recently got a drone that we will use, that we will fly up and move around and video the roofs to see if there's any obvious issues on the roof, right? So you're definitely looking for roofs. Roofs are one of your biggest ticket items as far as the cost to replace them if they go bad. So you want to make sure you get a good assessment of the roofs. You're also looking for the condition of fencing. Is it falling apart? Is it rotting? Do you need to repair it? Or do you want to add fencing, right? There's old saying, good fences make for good neighbors. That definitely applies in the multifamily world and can improve the look of your property and can get you higher rents because it gives your residents a nice more private and quieter place to live. And then also HVAC, right, which is your air conditioning system. You want to look at a handful of things right there. Hello, Malcolm from Dallas, Texas. You want to look at a handful of things there where, number one, how old are the units, right? Are they 10, 15 years old? Are you going to have to pay to replace them in the near future, which could be $3,500, $4,500 per set? Are they, what type are they? A couple of years ago, they outlawed, or they didn't outlaw, but they basically said you have to use air conditioning systems that use coolant called 410. And therefore you can't get the old, I think it's called R22 Freon, and you don't need to remember those details. But the point is you do want to know what kind of AC systems that you have, because that's going to affect, and how old they are, because that could be a huge cost going forward, right? Also in places like Houston and Florida and markets where you know, massive rainstorms and flooding and localized flooding can be really common. You know, are those AC units off the ground? Because if they flood, you're replacing them, and that is not cheap. And your residents are without air conditioning. So those are some of the things you're looking for there. This picture here is, we never quite figured out what happened. This roof, even though it's a metal roof, was damaged. We think somebody actually drove basically a high truck into it. So, all right, some other things you're looking out for. This is the first one here is something that gets forgotten frequently, and that is storm drains. A lot of properties, the storm drains are full of debris. This one here that you're looking at a picture of, you can't see the storm drain. There were actually fish in the storm drain because it had been backed up for so long and so much stagnant water in there that there were minnows and small fish in the storm drain, right? So we had the seller contact the city and have them come clean those out. And you definitely want to do that and stay on top of that, because if storm drains are backed up and you are investing in any part of the country that gets significant rains, that's going to increase the odds of flooding at your property, right? So check the storm drains. If there's crawl spaces underneath the buildings, go inside those or have someone go inside those for you. You're going to that'll let you know, is there termite issues? Are there mold issues? Is there wood rot? Is there plumbing issues? I mean, you'll learn a lot by going under the buildings. It's not going to be pleasant, but you'll learn a ton about the property. We've discovered some pretty nasty stuff by going under the buildings that otherwise we would not have known about. Big ticket, expensive stuff too. Check the parking lot, right? That should be pretty easy, but you want to factor in, does it need to be repaired? Do you need to do a complete new parking lot? Do you need to seal and stripe it, which just means put that black tacky stuff on there and then paint the new parking spots? You know, what do you need to do for that? New signage. This is a huge one. I mean, if you guys are if everyone's on Facebook can see this picture here, you know, this was a fairly new 2000, year 2000 construction property, fairly high rents, like $1,400 rents. And they have this little green moldy for rent apartment sign, right? That definitely is something that you would want to replace. So look at the signage and figure out, hey, how can you improve that? Tyler David on Instagram says, my service is awful on Facebook. Will this be available later to review? Absolutely. Bigger Pockets is recording these, and I don't remember the URL off the top of my head, but it is posted further back in the stream. And all 8 of these are going to be recorded and available for you to go back and check out later on. So, all right, I mentioned earlier drone photos, not required, but definitely helpful. You may say, well, geez, I really don't want to or can't afford to buy my own drone. Don't worry about it. Many brokers can actually do this for you, or even some property management companies. It's becoming very standard in the industry to have and use drones. So here's an example. Again, sorry, Instagram folks, this is on Facebook, but this is a picture of a property we were at a couple of weeks ago. And you'll see we circled some areas in red. Well, what happened is when the landscaping contractor sent us their proposal, they forgot those areas. And so we were able to just take the drone photo and circle those areas in red and send it to them, say, hey, please add these to your proposal. And it allowed for just very clear, succinct, direct communication. They said, oh, sorry about that. They came back with a very clear proposal, and we were able to prove it and say, okay, great. Go ahead and move forward with that. So drone photos are useful for that. Also, if you're getting investors in your deals, having some nice drone shots can really give them a good sense of the property and the area surrounding it. And then also, it gives you a good idea of maybe something you missed, getting that bird's eye view. So drone photos, again, not required, but certainly helpful if you can figure it out. And Soldier71459 on Instagram says, look at the current apartment reviews online. If they're all negative, you may have to pay for rebranding marketing. You're absolutely right. That is part of due diligence as well. And I would say in most cases, assume that you're going to do rebranding and remarketing. Once in a while, you may not need to, but most cases assume you are, and definitely go look at those reviews online. So thank you for the reminder, Soldier. Certainly appreciate that. Okay, interior. So we've done the outside. We're now moving on to the inside. And yes, you are going to walk all units. So again, if you're buying a fourplex or a duplex, not that big of a deal. if you're saying, wait, Andrew, someday I want to buy 300 unit property or 100 unit property, am I really going to walk all of those units? Yes, you are, but hopefully not you personally, hopefully somebody from your team, right? So the main thing is you want to walk every unit, because I can almost guarantee if there's 8 units and you go to do your inspections and the seller's like, oh, sorry, I can't get the key to unlock this one door. Are you okay if we just skip this one? That's going to be the unit that when you take over, it's got a hoarder living in there, and there's trash piled 6 feet high, or there was a fire a month ago and the owner took the insurance money and didn't repair it, and then now you just closed, and oops, you've got a $25,000 gut rehab to do that you weren't planning on, right? So absolutely get in every unit. Say, okay, well, great. What do I do? What if I'm there and they say, oh, sorry, we can't get in this unit. Too bad. We'll just have to keep moving on. We say, all right, that's fine. We understand. We'll come back tomorrow morning and you get and make sure that we can get in the unit then. So, and when we're doing inspections, we allow a little bit extra time for stuff like that to come up. So when you are in the units, you're going to want to check for aluminum wiring. That generally is in properties built in the 60s, sometimes early 70s. If you have aluminum wiring, that means the fire hazard is greater, so you're going to need to work that out with your insurance company. Doesn't mean it's a bad deal or a no deal, but it's just something that you need to know. You're going to look at the electrical panels, right? So if you think of in your house or your apartment, that metal door on the wall, you open it up and there's all the circuit breakers in there. There's certain types that are prone to causing fires. And if you have them, you're going to need to replace them, right? Your insurance company, maybe your lender is going to require you to replace them. That's a $1,500 to $2,500 expense. So you want to look at the panels. Are they clean? Are they full of, I can't tell you how many we've opened up and there's like 8 pounds of spider webs inside the electrical panels, which clearly means they haven't been well maintained. There's 2 kinds you're looking for. I think it's Federal Pacific and Stab Lock are the 2 that are a red flag. If you see those, again, Federal Pacific and Stab Lock, don't worry about how to spell it. It's just, if you see that stuff, you're probably gonna have to replace it, plan a couple $1,000s, right? You are looking for signs of water damage, right? Did the unit if you go in the downstairs bathroom, are there water stains on the ceiling? Meaning the upstairs bathroom has been leaking. We see that a ton, right? And especially in kitchens and downstairs bathrooms, you see water stains in the ceiling from up above. And that usually means either a roof leak, if it's a single story, or plumbing issues in the second story, if you have a 2-story property, right? So you're going to look for signs of water damage. And if you see that, try to figure out what it was. And then I put on here dryer vents. And you're like, okay, what the heck does that mean? Cannot tell you how many times we see dryer vents put in the craziest and most hazardous places, right? So we've seen dryer vents just routed around the corner into a closet. We recently looked at a property where the dryer vent just went straight into the attic. And ideally, they go outside of the building somewhere. And hey, thank you, T. Chackamon on Instagram. If you're wondering about the Federal Pacific and Stab Lock, he just posted that on the feed. Thank you for doing that. Really appreciate that. I can't type and talk in multiple feeds, so thank you. Really appreciate you doing that. Let's see, where were we? Oh, we were talking about the dryer vents. So if your insurance company finds that a dryer vent goes into the closet or the attic or just underneath the building, that's, again, a fire hazard, right? Think of lint building up into a big ball and getting hot. Well, that can eventually catch on fire and burn your property down. So if you see that, you're going to want to budget to take those dryer vents and route them outside of the building somehow, right? And again, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just some of the big stuff that we have found consistently that we need to look for. And I recommend building a checklist so you don't have to remember this stuff, right? So we used to print it out. Now it's all on an iPad where, every single one of these things is just a checkbox. Make sure we look at it in every single unit, right? Now, you're not just looking for bad stuff. You're not just looking for the problems. You're looking for the opportunities. So what kind of improvements can you make? And how much, and get a rough idea of what that's going to cost. So the picture you're seeing here is actually from one of our properties in Florida. When we bought this was brown 1980s wood paneling, looked very 1980s. And you'll see, we replaced cabinets and the appliances. We actually added the dishwasher, redid the flooring. So that's what you're looking for. Is there, when all these things that I've listed on this slide, so the flooring, the painting, the lighting, hardware, outlets, those are all things that you're looking at with two viewpoints. Number one, do you have to replace it in order to get the property leased well? And outside of having to replace it, even if you don't have to replace it, would there be added value in going ahead and replacing it anyway, right? So let's say you've got carpet that's like, hey, it's good enough for this property. But if you put in vinyl plank flooring, would it help you bump rents significantly? Well, if it does, it might be worth doing, even though you don't have to do it, right? Tile backsplashes, I skipped over that on purpose. That's something that, of course, is not required, but we've found that is one of your highest return on investment is putting in tile backsplashes. And I don't mean you get a expensive tile person to literally put in tile by tile. It's if you can places like Home Depot and Lowe's, and you can order through catalogs like Chadwell and HD Supply. They sell it's basically tile that comes on mesh, and you can cut it to shape and more or less plop it on there. And someone who kind of knows what they're doing can get this installed in just a couple of hours. So for a couple $100, you can take a blank wall space between your kitchen counters and the cabinets. Instead of just being boring paint, you can put this beautiful, inexpensive tile up there, and it dramatically improves the look of the kitchen. And people will pay for that because the kitchen is one of the most used rooms in the house. So backsplashes is the one thing on here that is almost never required, but at the same time, if you can work it into your budget, I do highly recommend that. That's one of the things we're getting the best returns on right now, our kitchen backsplashes. So, all right. Again, any questions, go ahead and post them. And also don't forget to like and share and send us the hearts on Instagram. Hopefully, let us know what's helpful. And also, feel free to suggest additional topics if you feel like that we're missing anything or if you have questions. So, all right, contractors. Hey, thank you for the hearts. So contractors, when and how do you deal with contractors? For any significant project that you're going to do, flooring, painting, whatever, you do want to try to get 2 to 3 quotes for all major projects. And then, when you did your underwriting, because remember, at this point, you're under contract. So when you did your initial underwriting, you estimated, right? I think the flooring is going to cost $3,000 or the painting is going to cost $8,000 or whatever. So now you're going to get actual bids from contractors so that you can use those bids to refine your underwriting, right? So you can be like, okay, well, hey, I budgeted $8,000 for the paint, and I got 2 proposals for $6,000 and $7,000. Cool. I can budget $7,000 and take this $1,000 and either not spend it or spend it on something else, like a kitchen backsplash, right? And then also during your due diligence period, you want to get the contractors out there so that you can, again, refine your budget, but then also have everything lined up so that the day you close, you can start your renovations, right? Especially if you're bumping rent or you got vacant units, the more quickly you get those filled, the more quickly you're going to be cash flowing well, and the more quickly the value of your property is going to go up. So the idea is, during your due diligence period, you're getting your contractors lined up and decided on so that the day you close, you call them up and say, good news, we closed. When can we get this work on the schedule? And ideally, actually, you might even do that in advance. Say, hey, we're going to close in a week. Can we start the day after? So you want to get all of that stuff lined up so that you can get a big jump on that. Also, back to kind of the exteriors is you want to drive the neighborhood and look at rent comps, right? So, if you're buying a fourplex and you've done some research, there's 20 other fourplexes within a mile radius, go drive a bunch of those, see what condition they're in, what do the yards look like, does it look like people are taking care of them, and have done your research so that you know what the rent is, so you can say, oh man, we can do way better than this, all these price fourplexes on this street, so we should be able to get $50 more because we're going to be renovated, and all these ones aren't. You're also looking for signs of growth and decay, right? Does it seem like properties are going downhill, or does it seem like people are upgrading their properties? Do you see commercial properties that are vacant, or does it look like new businesses are opening up, right? Do you see a lot of graffitis or other signs of crime? So, those are the kind of things you're looking for. And then how safe does the neighborhood look and feel when you're there? I mean, crime stats are great, but nothing beats, hey, do I feel safe here during the day? And especially, do I feel safe here at night? We got a good question on Instagram. I want to pause for just a second. So Wanderer and Saver says, would you recommend a home inspector confirm the condition of the home? If you're doing a single family duplex or fourplex, a home inspector can be a pretty, I'd say, a good deal in terms of cost versus benefit. I would be careful in that a lot of home inspectors are focusing on little things like, oh, the outlet is loose, or they tend to get caught in minutia and sometimes don't give you the bigger picture that you need. So if you've got a good home inspector and you're buying smaller properties, that can be a good route to go, as long as you communicate with them that, yeah, I am looking for the small stuff, but also please, make sure you look at it a bigger with a wider view of how much is it going to cost to possibly either get this up to code or improve it, right? So, because we used a home inspector on our first acquisition, it was 92 units, and I think I got like 1,000-page report of little stuff like, oh, this, the doorknob is loose, and it actually didn't tell me a lot of the stuff I needed. Like, you want to know, is there an issue with the foundation? How much might that cost? Does it look like there's water damage? All that big ticket stuff. So a home inspector can be good. If you're doing larger commercial properties, we at this point and for the last 8 or 9 years have been relying on contractors and our management company's renovation people. And those two combined has actually been far more effective for inspections than an actual home inspector. So I hope that helps. If it does, please hit the hearts and likes. But if smaller stuff, 4 units and down, home inspector probably okay. Bigger stuff, you probably want to go with contractors and people who are used to doing renovations. So. All right, we got just a couple of minutes left. We do have a few minutes here for questions. Actually, before I'll give you guys a chance, thank you for the hearts. I'll give you a chance again. If I missed a question earlier, please go ahead and repost it. That'll give a higher probability that I'll see it and grab it, especially on Instagram. And again, on Facebook, please post any comments, post any questions in the comments, and we'll grab those. So we just covered due diligence. And so now we're going to assume your due diligence went well and you still want to buy the property. So how do you finance the sucker, right? That is what we're going to talk about next week, and is your financing and debt strategy. And this is a piece that, again, really gets missed a lot. You need to match your debt with the business plan for the property, right? If you're going to flip a house, you don't want to get a loan with a giant prepayment penalty, right? So we're going to talk about loans next week and how to structure those, what kind, there's a lot of types out there. We're going to go over kind of pros and cons of those. And then again, week 8, the final one is you've closed on this. It is your property. Now what, right? How do you do asset management? And we'll also talk about what's the difference between asset management and property management. So, all right. Well, really appreciate it. Victoria on Facebook says, great nuggets. Thanks a million. You're welcome. Definitely enjoyed sharing with everyone. Fletch Instagram says, great stuff. Thank you. And again, we will talk next week. In the meantime, if you missed some of the first sessions we did, go back and listen to the recordings. We talked about some of the books that I recommend to get started. David Green's Long Distance Real Estate Investing. We talked about some negotiating books. Chris Voss, Never Split the Difference. He was on the Bigger Pockets podcast. Jim Camp, Start with No. And then Brandon Turner's book on rental properties. All of those resources are back in the last few weeks. So in the meantime, between now and next week, go out and pick a market, start building a team, start looking at properties, start making some offers, and get to the point where you need to do some due diligence. And if you haven't gotten a property yet, go out there and start working on getting your first one so that you can close out 2021 with a growing real estate portfolio. So it was great communicating and talking with all of you, and we'll see you next week. Take care.